A very warm welcome to you if you've just joined us. Welcome to your Daytime Update. I'm Thami Ngubeni. We move on now to the situation in Mozambique. Amnesty International has accused government forces, private military contractors, as well as armed groups of committing war crimes against civilians in the northern Cabo Delgado region. Now, to tell us more about the report that was published yesterday, I'm joined by Mr. David Matsinhe. He is a regional researcher at Amnesty International. Mr. Matsinhe, good to have you with us this afternoon. Give us a little bit of background as to why Cabo Delgado is such an area of interest. There's been a conflict there pretty much since 2017.
Cabo Delgado is a very rich province in mineral resources. And for the past 15 years or so, the area has attracted multinational corporations, local business people and the government. And there's been a great deal of expropriation of land from local communities to benefit these multinational corporations and interested business people. And as a result, there's a lot of disenfranchisement, dislocation, and dispossession of people who have lost their livelihoods, who have lost a way of living, and who are not happy with the way in which the land process, the transfer of land was, conducted in order to benefit these multinational corporations. So it's in this context that since 2017, we have seen an emergency of violence involving three parts. The one part is the insurgents who have been shooting and killing civilians, beheading them, burning their homes, looting their food and property, abducting women and girls, subjecting them to sexual, physical, and emotional violence, and forced marriages. And secondly, we have seen the government security forces responding in war crimes and human rights violations of their own. Torture of captured, fighters, extrajudicial killings of suspected members of this group, of journalists, of civilians suspected of providing aid and comfort to this group. And lastly, we have seen also the involvement of the South African military company called DIC Advisory Group, hired by the Mozambican government to provide military services. They have been shooting machine guns and dropping hand grenades from the helicopters indiscriminately without distinguishing between civilians and military targets. As a result, you've seen lots of civilians dying in this way. And that is why we are calling for investigations, open, transparent, and independent, exhaustive, and bring those found responsible to justice.
And who do you propose should be conducting these investigations? If South Africa is involved through the DIC Advisory Group, if the Mozambican government itself is involved, and then obviously there are the insurgencies, who do you propose should be the one spearheading this investigation, as well as the meting out of any justice that may pursue from the findings?
Absolutely. When it comes to the South African government, we have laws in South Africa about any persons or companies that, have ambitions to provide military services in foreign countries. There's a law specifically requiring such individuals and companies to seek authorization from the South African government to do so that the South African government can decide whether it's appropriate or not, and if it's appropriate, lay down the rules that must not be broken. Has this happened? Is the South African government in a position to tell the public whether this company has done so or not? Besides, we have international humanitarian law and the international human rights law. And South Africa and the Mozambican government have the obligation to conduct these investigations within the framework of these international laws and bring all those responsible for justice. We also have SADC, we have the African Union, We have the UN, who also have the obligation to conduct these investigations and bring those responsible to justice. So there are mechanisms and there are bodies that have been designed to do that kind of work.
From the investigations and the research that you have done, is the South African government aware of the presence then of the DAKE advisory group?
Well, according to the information that is available to the public, there is awareness that this South African company is providing military services in Mozambique. This information is known throughout the region. This is not news to anyone. What is new, what has come into the light, is the precise way in which this company is conducting its attacks without respecting the international human rights law, in violation of the South African law. This is the information that is coming out, and we are calling for an investigation. We know that this military company has put out a statement saying that they will put on their lawyers on the case to investigate what is happening. But we do not expect the accused to investigate themselves. That's not how the law works. There are appropriate bodies that have been put in place in order to do that. These are the ones that should investigate and hold this company accountable.
Mr. Matsinhe, perhaps let's backtrack a little bit and pinpoint what the brief was to the DAKE advisory company, the brief that was given to it by the Mozambican government. What were the expectations of what they would be doing on the ground?
Unfortunately, the Mozambican government has not been transparent about the ways in which this contract was put in place and signed. The company also has not been transparent about how this contract was put in. The government also has not said anything publicly, to our knowledge, about the involvement of this company and how that has come to pass. That is why all these entities have to come out clean, because now we see clearly that there are war crimes being committed right here at SADC, right here in the backyard of South Africa, with the involvement of a South African military company. And that is not acceptable. That is why we are calling for an investigation to bring all of those people responsible for this to justice.
Mr. Matsinhe, as Amnesty International, obviously you use platforms such as the media to raise awareness and to plead to those relevant parties. But over and above this platform and platforms such as this, what more do you do to ensure, or at least try to ensure, that these investigations do happen and that justice is meted out?
Excellent question. So what we do is research, out of which came this report. However, in addition to that, we do campaign and advocacy. We do that through the media, and we do it directly with the organizations that have the international duty to look into cases of human rights violations, to do their work, to send human rights monitors into the area. We work with bodies such as the African Union, different bodies of the United Nations that have the responsibility to do so. That is why we will continue to make these calls in the media, in private conversations that we have with these organizations, to put pressure on the Mozambican government to open the borders of Cabo Delgado so that monitors can go there to check what's happening, so that humanitarian agencies can also enter the area without hindrances to provide humanitarian aid to more than 600,000 of people who have fled from their villages, and now they are living in deplorable conditions in Cabo Delgado, in Niassa, and in Nampula, all the provinces of the north. This cannot be accepted in today's age of human rights. That is why we call all the bodies that have the power and the responsibility and the duty to look into this issue, to take this issue very seriously.
Mr. David Matsinhe, thank you very much for your time. That's the regional researcher at Amnesty International, outlining the human rights violations that are taking place in Mozambique and Cabo Delgado.